Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer. I am your host, Carl Wimmer, and more than ever, I am grateful that you are joining me today for this episode, an episode that is going to be unlike any other episode that you've ever watched because it involves a situation that is unlike any I have ever experienced before. Because just a couple days ago, I died. That's not hyperbole, and it's not a joke, and it's not a trick to get you to watch this podcast. It is the absolute truth. I went into asystolic cardiac arrest. That's a flat line where the heart is sending no electrical signal. And by the grace of God, I'm back. And so in this episode, I want to talk to you about what I learned when I died. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. There are several things that have taken place over the last few weeks that I have not discussed on this podcast, in large part because it's not necessarily applicable, and it's also very, very personal. This is probably the most personal I will ever get on First Responder Fitness, but I think it's important that I do share with you what took place. On January 24th, my son died. Now, I've talked about my two boys who are both firefighters, and this is not one of them. My wife and I have we have three of our own children, and we also have two boys who we brought into our home about 15, 16 years ago, both of which have severe disabilities. And on January 24th, one of them unsuspectingly and shockingly passed away in his sleep. And we have been trying to grieve and work through that heartache and sorrow. And, you know, it's interesting as I talk on First Responder Fitness about physical fitness, mental fitness, and spiritual fitness, how all three of those really have been tested to the maximum in the last few weeks, especially the mental fitness with the loss of a child and the spiritual fitness with the loss of a child. And while I don't talk often about my own religious beliefs, my own spiritual walk, because as a whole, at First Responder Fitness, our belief is that you as a police officer, as a firefighter, you should be grounded in something that is bigger than yourself, something that is larger than yourself, that a grounding belief in God is important when you're dealing with life and death, and when you're dealing with the serious issues that we first responders deal with. But I rarely get specific, but today that changes. I am going to get very specific as I talk to you about the things that are so near and dear to my heart. We had just laid our son to rest. We had just memorialized him in a beautiful private family memorial, as well as a private memorial at our church, a celebration of life, if you will, this past Sunday. And 2 days later, on Tuesday, February 3rd, I found myself fighting for my own life. And it's shocking, it is surprising, and it's still disconcerting, but it is amazing that just a couple days after being flown by a medical helicopter to a cardiac trauma center, I am sitting here in front of you to discuss what happened. It was unbelievable to go from heartbreak to heart stopped in less than 2 weeks. It's absolutely unreal. But what happened to me is very simple. And I want to talk about it because it is so important and it just might save your life. And that's what First Responder Fitness is all about. We are all about longevity, health, fitness, and doing things right. Tuesday night, when my wife and I went to bed, we were watching a show and I had some stomach indigestion. It wasn't a big deal. I thought, oh, well, but it's slowly transitioned into what I thought was heartburn. And so I took some Rolaids and it didn't help. Over the next hour or two, this pain that I had in my gut transitioned and kind of came together and condensed right in the center of my chest. And it became a heavy gripping pain right in the center of my chest. But it was not serious. It was not a brutal pain. It was not a serious or terrifying pain. But I woke my wife up and I said, hey, babe, just so you know, this is what's happening to me. Just in case. I feel okay, but just in case. And she says, let's go to the hospital. I'm like, okay, shoot. I didn't think we need to go to the hospital, but she wanted to go. So we got up, got dressed, and she started driving me to the hospital. And almost immediately as we're driving down the road, the pain is getting worse and worse. And it's exponentially getting more painful. It's getting harder to breathe. As we were about 30 minutes away from the nearest hospital. But that was still quicker than calling an ambulance because we live in a rural town. And as we were getting closer and closer to the hospital, I felt the pain radiating into my left side of my jaw and down the left shoulder. And my hands, especially my left hand, was getting very, very cold. We were pulled over because we were speeding, but the deputies quickly assessed the situation and gave us an escort to the emergency room. As soon as we got there, they were prepared for us. I sat on the exam table and they started asking questions. They hooked me up to the leads and they were getting ready to run all sorts of tests when I started getting very sweaty, lightheaded, and very nauseous. And I had just enough time to tell them, I don't feel good. And then I remember nothing for the next few moments. The next thing I remember was this bright light above my eyes and four people scrambling above me. And I was so confused. I was so unaware of what was going on and where I was. And I tried. They were calling me by name, Carl, stay with us. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. It was not like passing out. I've passed out before. I've been knocked to where I was unconscious before. I used to be a competitive fighter. But after you come to, after passing out, you figure things out very quickly. In this case, I didn't nearly as quickly. And I'm like, what is going on? And they said, you just died. And I'm like, why does my chest hurt so bad? And they said, we had to do CPR to get your heart beating again. And in the medical report, they use a word that I know a lot of medical terminology because I am a health advocate. I am a person who studies this kind of stuff. But they used a word in the medical emergency, the ER report that I got a copy of. And they said that I went bradycardic, and I know what that means. It means your your heart rate goes way, way down, and then went completely asystole. And that is when you go flatline. There is no signals coming from the heart. And they immediately began doing chest compressions. And according to the ER report, which is quite humorous, in fact, now that I look at it, it said after several chest compressions, the patient opened his eyes and said, Ouch. No kidding. Ouch. I've performed CPR many times on many people, always unsuccessfully. I've never brought somebody back. I've probably performed CPR maybe 24 times as a first responder, and it is brutal. You break ribs, you separate sternums, you break the breastbone. It is so brutal, the crushing and the snapping of the chest. And that's what happened to me in order for them to get my heart back. But it came back quickly. Apparently, according to the report, I started going out again. And I do remember the doctors yelling at me, stay with us, stay with us, stay with us. And I thought, I remember thinking, I am with you. But apparently I was going back into bradycardia, and they were afraid I was going to go asystole again. And so they injected me with a cocktail of medications that was insane. My heart started pounding, of course, epinephrine and atropine. My heart started pounding like, and it hurt in a way I've never felt anything hurt before. If you've weightlifted, if you've been pregnant as a woman before and you've had calf cramps, it kind of felt like that, but in the heart. And it felt like from the movie Aliens, where the little alien is breaking out of the chest. It felt like there was an alien inside of me trying to break out my rib cage. That was painful. But I stayed awake at that point. And they started giving me aspirins and nitroglycerin and different things like that. And they got the medical helicopter en route to take me to a larger, better, more well-equipped cardiovascular emergency center. I was then flown to a cardiac center, and I never lost consciousness again. Now, you might be sitting there asking, how in the world can I tell you anything about health and fitness when I had a heart attack? Well, the reality is I did not have a heart attack. There is no indication that I had a heart attack. In fact, there is no indication of any actual cardiovascular event other than the cardiac arrest and the asystole cardiac arrest, dying, my heart stopping. There's no damage to my heart. There's no damage to my arteries. There's no damage to the cardiovascular system. It's truly unbelievable. I have an entire team of cardiologists who are confused as to what happened. They ran every possible scan, CAT scans with contrast, CAT scans without contrast, ultrasounds with contrast, multiple echocardiograms and different tests. They even did the angiogram where they send the camera up an artery and into the heart and looked at all of the arteries and all of the chambers of the heart. The heart is working perfectly. The heart is functional. Every cardiologist I saw, and this is a testament to following first responder fitness, every cardiologist that I talked to was very impressed with my healthcare protocols. They were very impressed with the amount of working out I do, which I work out 6 days a week. I stress cardiovascular exercise along with a VO2 max exercise, as well as weightlifting. Everything that I talk about on this channel, I do. I follow what I preach, and they were so impressed. They were impressed that I have gotten my blood work done, and I know what my ApoB numbers are. They were very impressed that although I do not have high cholesterol, and I do not have what you would consider a high ApoB, I do take a very low level statin, and you can get the same benefit from taking red yeast rice, because red rice yeast in the pill form, but it's more expensive, is bioidentical to simvastatin. And so it does lower cholesterol, LDL anyway, and it does help with ApoB. But they were so impressed that a non-cardiologist, a non-surgeon, knew as much as I knew about health, fitness, and the heart. And they were very, very impressed with just my overall health. But they had no answers as to what happened to me. I was released from the hospital in less than 2 days. I was flown to the hospital on a Wednesday morning, middle of the night, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And I was released from the hospital on Thursday. I stayed in the hospital one night, Wednesday night, and I was released the next day, Thursday. I have gone on my morning walks. I've gone on some walks since then just to make sure that everything's working all right. I have not lifted weights yet because I'm supposed to not lift weights with my right hand because of the angiogram. And frankly, I am in so much pain because of the sternum and the CPR. It's going to be a while before I'm able to breathe deep, and it's going to be a while before I can strain lifting weights. But I plan to get back into the gym this coming Monday, which is 2 days from now, and doing cardio and perhaps doing a little bit of leg work without straining. This truly was, as I said, it was unbelievable to go from the heartbreak of a lost son to heart stopped in less than 2 weeks. In less than 2 weeks is something I never thought I would face. And the lack of answers is killing me. But we're going to continue to follow up with specialists and try to figure out exactly what happened. We have some pretty good theories. There's a possibility, although unlikely, that it was heartbreak syndrome, that literally the amount of stress that goes into your body can trigger heart attack type symptoms, and in some cases put you into cardiac arrest. That is unlikely because the chemical that they look for in your blood when you have a heart attack would have been there. And there was none of that. They tested my blood every hour on the hour and then every 2 hours for a while. And I never had the protein that is released into the blood. I believe it's called troponin. I never had troponin in my blood indicating a heart attack. Absolutely unbelievable. If I did have a heart attack, which the emergency room at first said they thought I did, then on the flight from the emergency room to the cardiac center, a miracle happened. An absolute medical miracle, a miracle that I cannot explain, that only God could explain. My wife and I have been through a lot the past little while, and it's given me some perspective. A couple humorous things at the ER. My wife is one tough woman, but I'll never forget her face when I came back from the dead and the nurse finally told her she could come up and hold my hand. And she told the nurse, "I don't want to hold his hand. I want to punch him in the face." And she came walking up to me, and she was so angry. She was not relieved. She was not happy. She was not sad. She was pissed. And I said to her, "Babe," I said, "I'm about to be loaded on the medical chopper. If I die on the helicopter, please don't let that be the last face I see." And she softened and she smiled. She gave me a kiss. And it was so funny. I love that woman so much. My best friend, Tim, who is also my brother-in-law, older brother of my wife, he came to the ER. And I truly know of no other friendship like mine and his. We've been friends since we were 8 or 9 years old. We worked as police officers and SWAT members together. We both competed in powerlifting on a national and worldwide level. And we're the exact same age, with maybe 2 weeks separating us. And so we've always had this really demented, morbid joke between the two of us that, hey, which one of us is going to die first? You or me, Tim? We're both into weightlifting and fitness, and which one of us is going to die first? And I guess on that night, I answered the question, and I lost our death challenge because I died first. The helicopter ride was the worst helicopter ride I've ever had. I couldn't look out the window. I was laying flat down looking at the ceiling of the helicopter. When I was SWAT team leader, I rode on helicopters a few times. And my wife and I, Sherry, we flew in a helicopter over Alaska onto the Mendenhall Glacier. Me and my sons flew in a helicopter over the Cayman Islands. Absolutely beautiful. Those were fun. Life flight, not much fun, but it gave me time to talk to God. It gave me time to sing worship songs. One of the songs that continued to come to my head throughout that is a song by an artist named Brandon Lake. It's called Gratitude. And I was singing it out loud on that helicopter. Nobody could hear me, thank goodness, because not only do I not sound like Brandon Lake, but with a busted up chest, I'm sure I sounded worse than normal. But I was singing praises to God because of his mercy in allowing me to breathe again and have life again. I had tremendous visitors at the hospital, some pastor friends, my two older brothers, my other siblings, and my father would have come if I had not been released so quickly. But I recovered, and I was walking around the room, and I was bebopping and ready to go. And so with no indication of heart problems, they sent me home. But the moment that everything hit me, and this is where I want to bring perspective to you, my viewers and my friends, was when my entire family, my beautiful bride, my sons, except for Julian, who passed away, my grandbaby, were all in the room together at my hospital bed. Everyone had been terrified, but at that moment we were all together and we were talking. You know, it hit me that I love these people and I want to live for a very long time. I want to date and romance my wife for decades to come. I want to see my children, my other children, get married and have children. And I want to see my grandbabies grow up. I want to train my granddaughter and my other kids in how to sprint because I love track and field. My daughter was a record holder, track and field sprinter. And I want to teach her daughter how to do it because I was my daughter's coach. I want to see these things take place. I want to be a part of their lives. And I am rededicated more so than ever to my health, my longevity, and my fitness. There is no question in my mind. And this should cause many of you men who are my age, 50 or so, to take inventory. Over 90% of people who go into asystolic cardiac arrest die forever, like they're dead. In fact, if you have asystolic cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, your chances of survival is 1%. Inside of a hospital, it's slightly better, but not much better. I really am a walking statistical miracle. Had my heart not been so strong, had I not been in so good of condition, had I not been focused on longevity for as long as I have, it is very likely that I would not be recording this video. So if you've let your health go, men, if you have loved ones, if you have a beautiful wife, if you have beautiful children, if you have just starting off with grandchildren, understand this. I know this is cliche, but it is the damn truth. If something like that could happen to me, I promise it could happen to you. And if your heart is not as healthy as mine is, you might not come back. That's horrifying. Truly, truly breathtaking stuff to think about. I'll tell you what, I'm dedicated to a few things moving forward in this second life I have. I'm going to love harder than I've loved before. I'm going to appreciate things that I have maybe taken for granted. As a matter of fact, I can't help it. I have been so emotional. The other morning when my wife and I gathered for breakfast, we always have breakfast together and we always bow in prayer. And the first breakfast that we had together after I was released from the hospital, I just looked at the scrambled egg whites and I started to cry because I was so grateful, so filled with gratitude for the chance to hold her hand and pray and thank God for a new day, to thank God for new blessings and to thank God for food, to thank God for the small things. One of my vices is Dr. Pepper Zero. It just is. Judge me. But the first Dr. Pepper Zero I had after getting out of the hospital, I teared up at. It was unbelievable. Everything we have is a gift. And I think all too often we are too numb to the realities of the gifts that God has given us. I don't ever want to go back to where I am numb to the gifts that the Lord Jesus Christ has given me. I give him all the honor and all the glory and all the praise for my survival and for what has taken place as I was in the hospital and what has taken place since. I am more dedicated than ever to bring you the best health and fitness and longevity information that I possibly can. I'm moving forward in faith, and faith was so important here. Spiritual fitness, the third pillar of first responder fitness. As I was in the hospital, members of my church sent me pictures of them gathered in our sanctuary praying on my behalf. I was receiving text message after text message from Christians, not only around my state, but outside of my state, who said they were praying for me, lifting me in prayer, lifting my wife in prayer and our family. My wife is the one who really needs to be lifted in prayer because can you imagine? I was a little busy dying, but can you imagine what she was going through? She had just she has not even finished mourning the death of our son. And she came face to face with the reality of almost permanently losing her husband in less than 10 days. 2 deaths in 10 days. I could not imagine. She said that when I passed out and when my heart stopped and I fell over, that I locked up, turned completely white, and I looked like a piece of meat on the table as they were just trying to revive me. I couldn't imagine that. But we move forward in faith. Although I'm in peak physical condition, my heart health is excellent, and it suffered no damage. Every breath I take is a gift from God. Every breath, every step, every morning, everything that we are given is a gift from God. And I want you to know that. Take nothing for granted, my friends. Take nothing for granted. You have no idea if the next breath is your last. You have no idea if when your loved one walks out that door, there's no guarantees they'll return. Something that happened in between these two things, the Sunday we honored our son who had passed away. The next day, my youngest son, who was a wildland firefighter, got into a terrible car wreck that totaled his car, gave him a concussion. Praise God, he's okay. But that could have been bad, and that could have been different. And then the very next day, I died. We have been through the ringer as a family here at First Responder Fitness, but although we have been through the ringer, our faith is strong. Our dedication to life and our family is as strong as it ever has been. So this should serve as a clarion call to you, my viewers. Take every day as the gift that it is. Find time to exercise. Eat healthy. Dedicate yourself to wellness and longevity. Do the right things for your heart and your body so that you will be around for a long time with your family. So that if you have some freak accident like I did, you will come out of it relatively unscathed. I was given a new lease on life, and I will not let this gift pass me by. My friends, love your family more. Hug your loved ones tighter. Don't be afraid to tell them that you love them. Don't be afraid to kiss them. Don't be afraid to express your love for your friends and your family. Stay close to God. If you don't have a faith, get yourself a faith that will see you through any crisis. As always, I'm here to help, especially now. If you need help, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please comment below. I do ask that you would subscribe, hit the bell button, help this channel to grow. We want to help as many people as we can when it comes to health, fitness, and longevity, particularly our dear friends in the first responder community. God bless you all. I'm Carl Wimmer, reminding you, as always, to be good to yourself. Be good to others. And as always, stay safe, my friends.